Here to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing from the Floow. This is in particular aimed at how we're using mobility information. So, for anyone who doesn't know who we are, we're a world leader in telematics. We gather data, and here we have Underspar School at the top. So very same area that we had before, and nice green around it, but unfortunately the problem is all these cars that move past at far too high speed, they're moving in a way that's creating issues, and what we're doing as a company is we're monitoring that. So we do that primarily to understand risk for insurers, but we also want to use the data for other things where it helps the world, and that's what I'm talking about today. So in Sheffield, if we just jump to Sheffield, we can obviously collate all that information, we can build up a picture and understand patterns. What's actually happening here is it's building up from data of vehicles travelling around, and that's being called in is what's known as the 85th percentile speed, which is what's used to set speed limits across the UK, and it helps you to inform about every road. Now, speed monitoring by officials will be in a few odd points or whatever else. We've got it for everywhere across the globe. So we can have that information to help inform how traffic moves. But what I'm really trying to do is to use the information that comes from all these various sorts of devices to help other things. So these devices come from connected cars, black boxes, many people don't see them but everyone talks about them. OBD devices, many more people have those than these, but they don't talk about those. But either way, they're all things for monitoring how you move. Smartphones as well as tag devices. No one needs to know about them, they're not really that important unless you're in the insurance world, but they're all devices that help to monitor and understand telemetry, which allows you to help understand some other aspects. But at the end of the day, these are just gathering GPS, accelerometer, bearing, speed. How does that relate to those? That's what I was going to talk about today. So very quickly, jumping into backwards and forwards. Some examples. So obviously you can collate this data together to get an idea of traffic behaviour, and what you're seeing here is Sheffield, there's the parkway going up, and this is on an average weekday night. The height of that is the level of traffic that's going past, the colour of it is the speed, so when it goes to yellow, there's actually speeding behaviour that's actually inappropriate down a residential road here, and you'll start to see exactly what's happening across the network, and you can have this across the entire country. So obviously you can start to use this information to monitor the network and understand how to improve things. And obviously through time, if I press the right button, you start to see things change. So weekday, midday, parkway is a nightmare, you all know it, most of you live nearby. Obviously traffic levels go up, but you'll see that things have slowed down on some of these roads. Actually there's still some speeding here because there's nothing actually stopping these yellow routes. These yellow routes is actually where it's dangerous for people. So we can start to actually identify where actually that's causing threat and harm to individuals around society, and how we can actually change that behaviour, how we can change those roads, how we can change society to make it better. And I can go through many examples of this, different times, weekend, midday, etc. And of course tonight, the PM peak, which is why you're all sat here rather than sat in traffic, which is a good thing, because otherwise you would be in that mess and you don't want to be there. But what it does do is it means that other people cut through these side roads. They cut through other background streets that they shouldn't necessarily do. People use ratrunning behaviours, they use behaviours that aren't really helpful for society, but they do it because for them it's the right thing to do because it gets them there quicker, which isn't always what you want in terms of traffic, it isn't what you want in terms of planning. So we try to use this data to try and make things a little bit better. So I think hopefully this might actually be a video, maybe. Which will, yeah, it's working, there we go. I'm just going to scroll through it because I haven't got time to talk through it a lot because I've only got a few minutes. But this is looking at various aspects of Sheffield. So all of the data here, we've got information down to every road in terms of the behaviour. And if I pause it there a second, I'll tell you some of the things about that we can see. So there's the city centre, and you'll see the different heights of traffic, etc., etc. But we're also knowing the 50th percentile speed, the 85th percentile speed, which is where you get the excesses and you start getting danger, and how far that is beyond that. We're also knowing how many people are actually travelling into that economic area, how many are travelling out of it, how many are travelling within it on very short journeys that shouldn't be made by car anyway, and you know the exact percentages for them for every street. So you can use this information to start to feed into programs for things like active travel, which is where we'll get to in a second, and the single slide that I promised to Chris, which is somewhere up here. Oh no, another slide first, apologies. Obviously you can use this to understand in terms of road safety. This is a big thing we do as a company to try and use this data to understand road safety. So there's various platforms we build to expose this information. So if this is just an example somewhere from the West Midlands using the same sort of data that we've got and made available for free in South Yorkshire is, oh, it's still carrying on, anyway, whatever. What it was showing there a second ago was information that's giving information for every road, past every school, past every cul-de-sac, every school street across the entirety of the West Midlands. There's about 11 cities in there, 11 major towns, a couple of main cities, not 11 cities, that's wrong. But it gives you the idea of being able to select in and view that information from a view of enforcement, a view of traffic planning, a view of traffic management, etc., to change those roads and environments. So it's all about measurement and using that information. So obviously from this type of data you can understand how you understand traffic, but I mentioned before neurology and a few other things, so I'm going to give a couple of other crazy examples about how you can start to use data, because regardless of the source you get it, you talked about water sensing before, it informs not just about the environment, it informs about the rivers, it informs about human health and their behaviours. All of this information should be reused. So, one more slide on road safety, I forgot that one. Yeah, so we've been doing this work all over the country. So this is the latest round of UK government funding for road safety. And we set every single part of this in the country and where it goes. So 50 million was spent this year, last year 100 million, before that I think it was 110 million, something like that. 27 projects this year. There were supposed to be 50 roads, but then they ran out of money, usual government. One of them's in Sheffield, which is Exel Road, which has now got a 1.4 million off the back of the fact that we identified that as a very high risk road, which is going to change quite significantly over future years in terms of urgent improvement. So just this year, that saves, over the next 20 years of course, but over this year the interventions that we put in place will save 750 lives. And we're doing this every year with using this data. Yeah, I'll skip this one, but we're doing it all over Europe, and we're setting the new standards for Europe for how you monitor road safety based on this type of data. I think everyone gets the idea for how you can use it to understand road risk, because you can see where people are aggressive, where they move fast, where they move slow. What's less clear is we're not measuring the environment. You're measuring NO2, you've got tubes, and you've got sensors that measure that. How can we use this data for this? Obviously we can see how vehicles are moving across the country, and we just recently completed a study where we're looking at the UK, looking at various cities across the UK, and understanding their behaviour in terms of their exact emissions as they move. And this is looking over a 7-year basis of every vehicle in that region and calculating the exact emissions of those to actually work out what's effective in terms of CAZs, what's effective in terms of the mitigations that are being put in place in those environments. You mentioned COVID being the big problem. Here's COVID in Sheffield. So this one is Sheffield on weekday congestions, and we're looking at exactly the amount of congestion that's causing vehicles to sit still idling and the amount of time they spend idling. And we're looking at the means of that's the 50th percentile of the idling behaviour, and we can monitor that by individual roads. And you can see here, lockdown, that's where it happened, where suddenly everyone stops idling because they just go, there's no one on the road, I can drive as fast as I like, which is not good for safety, but you can see exactly and measure the behaviour behind it. What we're noticing now is that behaviour is evolving. So in the new world order, the new normal that people are seeing, this is congestion that we see in the UK at the moment. So we haven't returned to what we were before. We're actually in a very different period. This is 2023, and that is the level of vehicles that end up being stationary on roads at the moment in the UK, and that's the entire UK for this particular plot. So we're finding a change of behaviour, and some of that's linked to individual change, working from home. It's linking to other aspects in terms of behavioural change linked to road strategy, whereby roads are being ripped up and repaired differently in different areas, which is causing more congestion and causing things. Advancing things for cycling, which is a great thing and should happen more and more, is starting to cause some conflict in some areas, and these are causing air pollution. So we're starting to get issues whereby the change of behaviour to actually make air pollution better is actually making it worse. So we're starting to measure that aspect of actually what are the side effects of policies that are happening at the moment and how they impact globally. Now that's not long term because it will change, because people will drive less, people will change their behaviour. I will move on because I've only got a few minutes, haven't I? Yeah, so we're doing the world's largest vehicle observatory, and we monitor all sorts of different things. So things like how much time vehicles spend cruising, idling, etc., and all of those go into understanding from the exact vehicle type that they are to monitor how much actually comes out the tailpipe, or from resuspension, or from the tyre. So this is just cruising behaviour in a particular area of Birmingham, and you'll see that road's clearly downhill because no one's using the engine, they just basically cruise down it. But you'll get the idea of where people are using various force, which actually then generates maps of actually where pollution is concentrated. And we can see where it's generated at source on the road network because of the environment and how people are driving. And active travel, I promised a slide, here we go. So we're doing this in lots of projects all around the UK. I think we're nearing 100 projects linked in active travel now. We've replanned a third of London boroughs have been replanning their active travel strategies based on our data in 90% of UK cities. So this is taking information from telematics data, and this is an area of Sheffield, I believe, but I forget which one. If anyone recognises it, please tell me.
Never Edge.
Never Edge? No, always that was the controversial one. There we go. But that one's definitely Never Edge.
Is it not the same?
Not the same, no. That's Never Edge, that might be Crooks. I can't remember which. Anyway, either way, what we're able to do is be able to calculate the level of thoroughfare traffic that shouldn't be going through residential areas, people taking shortcuts. That level of traffic that's going through there is people that have no reason, they're not stopping there, they're not travelling through there, they're just using it as a shortcut to get through, and we can calculate it exactly on the behaviour changes of people where they go through traffic, to then inform into policy. And this has helped to drive a lot of the programmes that are happening across the country for low traffic neighbourhoods, including ones that don't work out quite as well. So this is the Never Edge one you mentioned, that recently has had that part cut off. Still got these crossings, but this part here, in terms of actually a modal filter that only lets cycles through, has been cut off. It wasn't particularly successful because it's a very steep hill, so cyclists tended to avoid it. But it did stop cars going through here, and it did stop rat running traffic. That was a fantastically successful area. It had about 16% increase in cycling, 5% decrease in burglaries and household crimes. It had every single metric you could measure it on. It was positive to a huge degree. But that bit's been repealed, unfortunately. So it's not my decision. So anyway, moving on. Lots of other things we do with the data as well. We're doing, at the moment, we're doing, and based around Sheffield, we have the National Observatory that's looking at neurology-based driving behaviour. So although we're just measuring driving and how people are moving, we can actually track that in terms of actually, are people still fit to drive? Are they okay to drive when they get older? At the moment, the processes for this are an absolute nightmare. You wait 12 months in 47% of the country where they have a clinician that's able to serve you. The other 53% are completely unserved. So you will drive until the point you cause an accident. The 47% that does get treated will send people off to assessment centres that take them to somewhere remote and then say, here's how you learn to drive. Can we check how you're behaving in an unfamiliar vehicle, in an unfamiliar space, which people with mild cognitive impairment, neurological issues, are an absolute nightmare. So we're now able, using the data that we've got, to help predict and detect this ahead of clinical assessment. And we're using data to be able to get some of that. So that's a new project. It's got a long way to go before clinical trial. So it's going through a clinical trial with NHS, but this is 5, 6, 7 years out before it actually makes a clinical impact, unfortunately. So it's a long way off, but we're still using data to do that. I've talked for too long, but all I want to say is that it's not just the data that you gather. The data that you gather in your particular market can be used in other areas. So we're a road safety company. We take information about risk and we calculate it for insurance. Yay, exciting, no one likes insurance. We try to do everything, lots of other things with that data, and other people that gather data as well should do interesting things with their data to help other people. That's what we try to do. That was it. Questions later on if you want.